everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the top 10 fantasy books or series that I have read already. So it might seem like I haven't really read a whole lot of fantasy books because I was looking through, and to be quite fair, when I first started getting really big into reading, I found the series that I liked and I just continued to reread. But in the last several years, I've started to branch out a little bit more and get new books and get some new favorite series. And so I'm excited to talk a little bit about my top 10. Some of them are older, and then some of them are newer. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So coming in at number 10 is the Zodiac series by Romania Russell. So this is a 4-book series, and I really enjoyed reading this. It basically takes place in a fantasy galaxy, and each planet is a specific zodiac sign. Well, the main character, Ro, she is from the Cancer planet. And at the beginning of the story, basically she's at school or whatever, and then something happens and their planet is attacked. They don't know what's going on or whatever, but there was massive amounts of casualties. And I don't quite remember how she became the guardian, but she became the guardian of her planet, Cancer. And each planet does have a guardian. They're supposed to have like all kinds of power or whatever. And to be quite fair, I read this, oh gosh, it's been at least 5 years. But I love this series. It's kind of more of like a sci-fi fantasy, to be quite fair, since it does take place in space. But it's got that fantasy setting of powers and all that stuff. It's also got a little bit of a romance, which I love. So to be quite fair, I really need to pick this back up and reread this series because I flew through this. It was just great. It was a good time. So yeah, if you want something that is sci-fi fantasy, galaxy, talks about zodiac and all that kind of stuff, then definitely check this one out. Coming in at number 9 is the series A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This one is a more recent read of mine. I think I read this last year, and this was super good. It was super unique, and it was a great time. I loved it. So in this series, basically you have 4 Londons. You have a gray London, a red London, a white London, and a black London. The black London kind of doesn't exist anymore. They did something to where it basically, they destroyed themselves. But there are people in these Londons that have magical powers. However, gray London, they've lost their magic. It's basically like our London, gray and gloomy and all that stuff, with no magic. While red London is where all of the magic is basically prospering. And so you have the main character, Kel, who can jump to these different Londons. So you've got the King of Red London, you've got the King or Queen of White London, and the King of Gray London. And so he is a messenger between these Londons because he, as far as he knows, is the only person who can travel to the different Londons. So then it just so happens that he brings something back from Grey London, and it turns out it's from Black London. And then through this whole series, it's just it's a whirlwind of a ride. And Kel goes on an adventure with his new friend who jumped with him, I believe with him, from Grey London to Red London. And her name is, what is her name? Delilah. I think in the book they call her Lila Bard. So just a masterpiece, this series is. And V.E. Schwab just came out with her basically another book in this world, and I think it's going to be another trilogy, so super excited. But if you haven't read this, please check it out. Coming in at number 8, and I have to put this on the list just because it's a nostalgia thing for me. This was one of the first fantasy books I ever read, and I grew up with it. I loved it. The book, obviously, / series is Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. There's not really a whole lot I can say. Everybody knows Harry Potter. It was a world phenomenon in the books, in the movies. I mean, they're coming out with a series now. I'm a little worried about that, but I will watch it. I will check it out. Maybe we can chat about it. But this, I mean, if you don't know, it takes place in London, the UK, and Harry is an orphan boy who lives with his aunt and uncle in the London-ish area, and he's a wizard. Well, he finds out in the first book, he finds out that he is a wizard, and he goes off to Hogwarts, which is the school, and it's where he learns about magic. He takes all the different classes, and each book has a different adventure, but there is a theme through all of it. And it builds as each book grows with Harry. Like the first 3 are, I would say the first 3 are definitely YA. I think all of them are YA, considered YA, but you can tell by book 4, it gets darker and darker and darker. So, but if you haven't read Harry Potter, please check it out. It is by far one of the best series you could read. Coming in at number 7 is the Poppy War series by R.F. Kuang. This, you talk about dark. This is a super dark historical fantasy. It takes place in one of the Chinese time periods. Don't quote me on which one, but it was basically when opium, kind of like a heroin, was super big. But also there is a lot of like war going on. And in this book you have Rin, and she lives in a little village, and she's trying super hard to get out of the village. She's trying to go to the war academy, basically, and you have to take a test and you have to pass to be able to go. And if you go, it's like a full scholarship or something. You don't have to pay, but you have to pass this test. So she studies so that way she can get in, because if not, her mom is basically gonna put her in an arranged marriage with a way older guy that she doesn't even want to be with. She doesn't want to be the normal woman in this time period that has an arranged marriage and just gives birth to sons. So she studies and studies, and she passes the test to get into this war college, and that's when things start to change. You go through her classes with her, and you find out what she like has inside her. But as the book goes on, it gets gruesome, and you read the second one and the third one, and it's just gruesome. And I'm telling you, this book has so many morally gray characters. You want to love them, but you also want to hate them at the same time. Phenomenal book by series by R.F. Kuang. Just, if you haven't picked it up and you're okay with reading some gruesome, dark topics, pick it up. And in at number 6 for me is the Legendborn series by Tracy Deonn. So there's only 2 books so far in this series, but it's great. It is a YA series that has the mythology of Arthur and the Round Table, but it takes place in modern day. So in this book, you have Bree Matthews as the main character. She is a young African-American who technically is still in high school, but she is, she's in an advanced program where she goes and she takes classes at North Carolina. And so she gets in, she sees something one night and she can't really explain it. So she's able to get in with this, basically like a secret society kind of thing, because she can see these demons. And she's the only one, of her, background. And so she gets a little bit of hate and stuff because, they're not used to change. So she struggles with that, but she's able to get through it. And she goes through these 3 different trials, to be able to be a part of this society. And you find out some really cool stuff at the end of the book, because there is a mystery kind of thing behind it. Basically, these people are scions of Arthur and the Round Table. And if you are a descendant, you can call upon their power, but it's only if you're called. And so these demons are trying to call basically Arthur, so that way they can kill him, and then there's no more magic. They can run free and all this, and this society is supposed to stop them. But these are basically college-aged kids that get this power. And it's the same thing with Merlin. There is, I want to say, descendants of Merlin, but they don't call on his power. They just have power. So it's super good. There is a romance, and I kind of want, I think there's a love triangle, but you don't really see that until book 2. You kind of see it, but then you don't see it until book 2. But, so a little spoiler there, but super good. I can't wait for the 3rd one to come out. Tracy Deonn just made this magical world, and I love it. Coming in at number 5 is the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, and this is Mistborn Era 1. So I haven't read a whole lot by Brandon Sanderson. I've read 2 of his secret projects that have come out, the Mistborn series, and I read some short stories by him. But I definitely need to read more Brandon Sanderson. I love basically anything he writes. His worlds are so unique, so thought out, and his writing is just great. And I know a lot of people don't get his humor, but I get his humor. So the Mistborn series is basically, it takes place in a world, it's basically where the Dark Lord won. So it's very gray and dark, and all these volcanoes, and there's the cloud cover from it, ash everywhere, and you've got nobles and you've got Ska. Main characters in this one are Vin and Kelsier. Kelsier is Mistborn, and so is Vin. They can manipulate any type of metal. It does not matter what it is, as long as they digest the metal, which is in kind of like a liquid form or whatever, then they are able to use that power. And each metal has a different power. But then there's also individuals that are called, they basically, they only have one. They can only manipulate one metal. I forget what that's called. These people are trying to take down the Lord Ruler, who is over the entire continent. And Kelsier gets this band together, and he found Vin, and so he recruits Vin to help with his scheme. And so through the 3 books, you're really through the first one, you're going through this. The second and the third one go into a little bit more of certain things. I'm not gonna talk about it. You're just gonna have to read it. But yeah, this, in the first book, it is just a quest to take down the Lord Ruler. Super great back and forth between Vin and Kelsier. There's just so much to it, and you have to like really dive into it and read it to pick up on stuff, because there will be stuff in this book that won't get answered until the 3rd one. So you have to like try to remember it, and usually, and Brandon does a really good job of reminding you in a certain way of like a memory flashback, or certain like key points here and there in his books, or at least in Mistborn. Just a absolute phenomenal world. The world building was phenomenal. The character development was phenomenal. Like, I love this series. I definitely plan to read it again. But I want to get through a lot of his other books first. So coming in at number 4 is God Killer by Hannah Craner. This book, I loved this. A lot of people are saying that if you like The Witcher and you like the relationship between Geralt and Ciri, you'll like this, because it's kind of the same. It's got the same underlining theme of, you know, Geralt goes and kills monsters. This girl goes and kills gods. And they both do it for a price. Well, then in The Witcher, you have Ciri, and then in this one, you have a noble's daughter who is connected to a god, and they want to try to figure out how to break that up. Because they can't go too far away from each other. If they do, then they could die. And so they talk this God Killer into helping them figure out how to breach it. And then they get somebody else to come along with them. So it's a huge adventure. But if you like the relationship part of Geralt and Ciri, this goes a little bit more in depth on that relationship side of the god killer and the noble daughter. It's such a great book. It's super short, as you can see, but it's just so good. I cannot wait for the second one to come out. I don't know when it will, but this leaves you on a cliffhanger, and I would definitely recommend this. This was phenomenal. Coming in at number 3, and it shouldn't really be a surprise, but I mean, I have to put it on here. It's one of my favorites. Is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I have to be honest. The first book was great. I loved the first book. The second book, like, I can't even compare it to the first one. It was that much better. And I think it was just because of the main character kind of flipped. One of the main characters flipped, and I just love it. So A Court of Thorns and Roses is basically, you have Freya, who lives on the human side of the continent, and she kills a wolf, but finds out later on that it was actually a fairy. And so Tamlin, who is the king of the Spring Court, that was one of his soldiers. And so he comes and basically says a life for a life kind of thing. Well, he took her instead of killing her. And so she now lives in the Spring Court. And so now she's trying to figure out, like, how to live in fairy by being a human. But then also she's tackling her feelings for Tamlin. And, you know, she's got her 2 sisters and her dad still in, her dad or her mom, I think, in, I think it's her dad. I don't quite remember. Don't quote me on that. Back in the human realm. And so she basically does it to keep them safe that she goes over there. But I don't know, like, this was super, super good. And the series itself is just good. And then Sarah J. Maas is kind of building a world. So, like, her own little universe. And I'm excited for it. I'm here for it. I am ready to dive in. So if you haven't picked up ACOTAR yet, you definitely need to try it. Phenomenal. It just keeps getting better. Coming in at number 2 is a new recent read for me, and the next one comes out November 7th. It's already been pre-ordered. I cannot wait to get it and devour it. But that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And when I tell you new favorite series, I mean new favorite series. Like, this is a fantasy romance, but it's got phenomenal characters. I'm excited to hopefully branch out more into the world because the map is great and it's got dragons. I mean, if it has dragons, how can it not be a favorite? This was phenomenal. So basically, this book is about a girl who she's very weak. She's got some type of disease to where her bones break a lot more easily. She has to work to keep her stamina up. So she struggles. So her dad, before he died, was training her to be a scribe. Well, her dad passed away, and her mom said, "You're not going to be a scribe, you're going to be a dragon rider." And there's a school that trains scribes There's an infantry division, healer division, and then dragon riders. Dragon riders are the ones where the death toll is super high. There's not a lot of people that get out of it and actually become riders. And so her brother and her sister, her brother was a dragon rider and her sister is a dragon rider. And basically her mom was like, you are my daughter and you will be a dragon rider. So she has to try to survive through this school. Well, you then meet another character named Xander, who is these rebels. It's a rebel's son. So there was a rebellion years ago or whatever, and all the rebels were executed. The rebels' children were inscribed with a tattoo saying that they were the children of these rebels. And also these children were made to go into the Dragon Riders quadrant when they became of age. And so he was the leader of the rebellion's son, which basically makes him the leader of all of the rebel children. Well, he hates his mom for killing his dad and his mom, I think. So ultimately, he wants to kill Violet to get back at her mom. So you have all that. And then there's chemistry that, really shouldn't be there, but it is just great. Super excited for the second one. This ended on a cliffhanger like no other. Didn't see that coming whatsoever. So if you haven't picked it up yet, please pick this up. Please go ahead and either pre-order or get it on the date that it's out on the second one and just binge it. You will not be disappointed. The last book and my number one fantasy book / series that I have read so far, I'm going to hold up my special edition of it, but it is all of the Shadowhunter books by Cassandra Clare. So this is the Barnes & Noble special edition of Chain of Gold. Barnes & Noble's, if you need to make a special edition of Chain of Iron, like now, I need the next one. And also make one of Chain of Thorn, please, so I get the matching set. But anyway, the Shadowhunter series, basically, it started off with a 6-book series called the Mortal Instrument series. And that is where you have Clary and Jace as the main characters. And basically, Shadowhunters, they fight demons. That is the main part of it because the Shadowhunters are considered Nephilim. So they are the sons and daughters of angels, basically. And so you have a whole race of Nephilim. Then you have downworlders that are your vampires, your fairies, your werewolves, like any other thing that is not considered a demon is a downworld. And they all live. And so you have these downworlders that are trying to live and be in an alliance with the Nephilim. And some of the Nephilim are okay with it. Other of the Nephilim are like, no, we're better than you kind of thing. But really, they should all work together because of the demons trying to come through. But basically that's what all these series are. There's different storylines and like mysteries to solve in each of them, but there's also romances in it. It's just got everything. These are all YA, but it's some of the best YA I have ever read. Cassandra Clare can do things with words that you don't know how your heart is going to feel afterwards. You're going to be mad, you're going to be sad, you're going to be jumping for joy, you're going to want to scream. Like, she does such a great job. So I definitely recommend any of the Shadowhunter series. A lot of people say that you should skip the first 6 and just start at the Infernal Devices. But I really liked the Mortal Instruments. Cassandra Clare, those were her first books. Obviously her books got better as she kept writing, because you perfect your craft. But like, I love all of them. They are just so good. And I think I've reread these, I don't know how many times. So definitely will be rereading them throughout my life, and I will be reading them to my children. But yeah, please go check them out. They are great. So those are all of the top 10 fantasy books or series that I have read so far. Hopefully I can do another top 10 here in the near future with some more of the books that I plan to read. Maybe my top 10 has changed. So stay tuned for that later on. But thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching my video. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave some comments on what your favorite fantasy books are. And don't forget, be good people. When you feel it's hopeless, when you